Are Manchester United finally getting their act together? Sir Jim Ratcliffe has spoken to the media, and we are about to nibble on every quote that he has put forward, but also talk about the young players at Man United and how exciting they've been in recent weeks. And of course, when the impending appointments, Dan Ashworth, who's making his way, it seems, to Manchester United. A couple other quotes from Sir Jim. It's important to call him Sir Jim, I think. The scale of Manchester United is incomparable to any of the London clubs, to be honest with you. He said the fans would run out of patience if it was a 10-year plan, but it's certainly a 3-year plan to get there. And when he says get there, he's talking about challenging, and he's suggested that they should be challenging every year. Dan, you're a Man United fan. How do you feel about his comments and the time frame around it?
The 3-year plan will not work. If you keep the current gaffer, you get a new manager in. If you're going to give them 3 years and there's no trophies, I can guarantee they're not going to last 3 years. Even if we're developing superstars, even if we're got the next Mbappe, 3 years is not going to work with United supporters, I feel. I feel with any of the top 4 teams, they don't want to wait 3 years for a trophy, even if it's a development phase.
So he uses the word environment a lot in the interview that I watched, which I thought was interesting. And I guess there's the environment within, the club, the training ground, which you know so much about at a professional level, and what that's like. But you're kind of talking about the environment outside of the environment.
Environment is the safe word. If things are going wrong on the pitch, we're creating a great environment, and eventually it's going to, environment is the safe word. Whereas United supporters, they want results.
They just want results, yeah. So, but is he right in going, let's forget about what's going to be said from the media and from fans alike and just focus on that environment? Is that what you want to hear and see from your owner?
In terms of from the inside coming out, you want to develop a great environment. You want there to be a philosophy that everyone can see, developing players, and there's progression. The one thing that I don't agree with, that I don't think is going to happen, is in that 3 years, if we're not getting results, not fighting for any trophies and any cup competitions, I feel there's going to be some managers that are going to get the sack.
So, and in terms of progression, what do you see as, at the end of a 3-year period, a place where Man United fans can be sort of happy with where they're at in terms of growth and getting where they want to be? Because I put out a tweet a couple of weeks ago asking about this identity of Man United, and there's a phrase like "this is Man United." I think it's a very charged one, but if you're saying this is Man United, you should know what Man United is, and often the identity is about bringing through young players a lot of the time, but also the word that I kept seeing in this tweet was fast, like transition, quick football, right? So if they want to do that, as long as they're seeing the young players and they're playing exciting football, dominating games of football, and they're, say, 4th because you've still got Liverpool are dominating, Arsenal are in a great phase, Man City is still a great phase, will that be enough?
There's got to be a 2-part progression. Homegrown players that we're developing, but then the experienced players that we're signing have to hit the ground running. And we need to see success from them. Not a year to get used to the Premier League. I think when you're in one of the top 5 clubs, your signings need to get into the thick of things straight away.
In terms of those signings, that's an awkward position for Man United as well. They don't have much money.
No, they don't.
Because they've not brought in any money from FFP.
Yeah, they don't.
From transfers, sorry.
They don't. Be interested to see if there's some way Sir Jim can make sure finances go. We say that, though. They do still go and spend 60, 70 million on Hojlund. Like, that's a lot of money for... that's still one big player every season they can go and bring in.
I think the difference coming into this year is... And that's where they're trying to get rid of Maguire and McTominay, is that... it's, and I like to see it. It's nice that sort of those big clubs can't just spend away all their woes. They, it gets to a point where there's only so much you can spend within certain areas of it. So bringing through those players is going to be important. Get to Dan Ashworth in a second because he'll be crucial in terms of helping that and again sorting out that buzzword of environment. In terms of young players that are exciting right now at Man United, could be Mainoo, Hojlund, Garnacho, 3 players who are playing very well in a team that is winning, if not utterly convincing.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the idea that if you can't just spend away the problems, really building a team around these 3?
really, really good. I think Manchester United have a fantastic academy. Like, I think we've now starting to see the era where a few like youngsters are ended up switching from United's academy to City's academy, because that happens quite a lot in the Manchester area. But generally, they've got a really good academy, and also Man United have been really good at kind of finding youngsters who aren't necessarily from Manchester, but bringing them in, using the name of Manchester United, and kind of doing what they did with someone like Garnacho. And getting the best out of them. Garnacho, some people will say that Erik ten Hag has had a very 50-50 time. One of the things Erik ten Hag has done really, really well is his use of Garnacho. Wasn't straight away you're in playing every 90 minutes. It was actually you're more of an impact sub, giving you the kind of running at defenders when they're a little bit tired. 70 minutes you come on, and he made really good on that kind of dedication shown to him by Ten Hag, and then he earned a starting place. That was really good. Hojlund, again, someone who had a really rough kind of first half of the season, again, super young, but also a really solid Champions League campaign for United. And then now we started to see him really go on. And then when things like injuries were happening, he went and trusted someone like Mainoo in that midfield, and he's not been able to take him out since because he's playing so well. I think for United fans, you think back to the previous eras when United was so good, right? Part of that was always in that Manchester United team was some sort of link to the academy, linked with all the 92 squad, so on and so forth. There's so many links from when it was either Gary Neville all the way to even when they brought in a young Wayne Rooney, who was somebody maybe not from the academy, but someone that was really, really young and was able to build that connection with the fan base.
The one thing that I would be nervous about with it being all about these three is actually, you talk about all of those great teams, it's kind of it's unfair and not truly the truth when you think of, say, the class of 92. Class of 92 were held up to a point by Roy Keane, Schmeichel in goal, Cantona up top. And as the years have progressed, you've had, again, Ferdinand, you would always have
Vidic,
that spine of those guys. It was the mix. The mix had to be right. Do you think it's unfair for it to be all about these three guys? It's actually going to be about that recruitment. And Dan Ashworth it's going to be so crucial for him to get the right players that can either deal with the price tag that's going to be high or turn into an utter gem. It's a tough job for Dan Ashworth, isn't it?
You're not going to win anything, in my opinion, without experienced players. And the issue at the moment is we're relying so much on these young players that don't have a lot of experience. And I think we found out what happened with Arsenal last year when it came to the crunch time. It was their lack of experience. So
would you say as well, just to ask quickly, to the development of a young player, there has to be, I've always had this theory that there's such adrenaline when you come into a team and there's no expectations on you, and that's a really great place for a young player to sort of come in and play fearlessly because they don't have to worry about that. After about 20 games or so, or sometimes even a season, it's that second album, like it's difficult, I think, for those players to go, okay, you're just a pro now. Like, we're not kind of giving you that leeway as previously that you've seen. Say someone like Rashford came in, the guy's a god. Even Saka right now with the conversations around him, and he is putting out output. People are kind of trying to find the sort of different side of the story. That would be another thing that I'd be slightly nervous about with those three. If that pressure's on them going into next season. Right?
The players will play with emotion and they'll all have sports psychologists. However, a sports psychologist is going to be giving you completely different information to what an experienced professional is going to give you. They've experienced that at the highest, they've experienced the lows. And I think it's having that environment and then players around you where they can help guide and support you when it's going really well, to keep you humbled and to keep you hungry. And then when it's going low and you're having a dip in form, where they can keep you engaged and hungry to score more and perform better.
And those layers, right? Those layers of experience, you can kind of, once I've been through that, you can kind of, that's something that you can't be told. You've got to kind of go through. So with all this kind of said, how do you think Dan Ashworth will be able to just kind of use the old Ashworth wand and fix this?
I think if you ask people at Newcastle, they'd say he didn't do that at Newcastle. You look at the transfers he brought in, which were only the summer just gone. Those were the only deals he'd done. I think it was Tonali, Harvey Barnes, Livramento. Guys who are very young, not necessarily the experience that we're talking about here. Tonali maybe has actually experienced quite a bit for such a young age, but still guys who are very young and actually quite expensive too.
Sure, just on that, I think that's interesting because you say like Hall and Livramento, you kind of got them from Chelsea. Can Man United get those kind of players? You know, would they have those kind of relationships?
Well, Livramento,
I guess you picked up Mount.
Yeah, they did. Livramento, I guess, was Southampton. It was kind of the one afterwards as well.
Right.
I think the thing is, I've always found it really interesting. It's like when I remember, it's like Caicedo when he moved to Chelsea, right? Like Caicedo joined Brighton as a £5 million player. It's really easy as a £5 million player to look really good and be suddenly your worth goes up. And then when you become £100+ million player, then you're expected to do everything in football that's possible. I think the same can be said a little bit for Dan Ashworth. Like when you are at a Brighton and you are, I guess Newcastle doesn't really count, it was so short, but when you are at someone like a Brighton, he has done incredible things as well beforehand with his work with the FA as well and the England team. But when you're at a club like that, no one notices the ones that go wrong because they only cost 2 million. And the ones that go right only cost you a few million as well. So there's so much, there's little risk and so much reward. At United, completely changes. Do Manchester United play a £5 million Caicedo? I'm not so sure at the time because fans suddenly go, why are we playing him over our 60 million Casemiro or whatever it might be? If in the summer he says, I want to spend £25 million on this winger to replace Rashford, for instance, I don't know. Who United fans haven't really heard of, are United fans going to then be accepting of that? Or is Erik ten Hag going to, it's going to be interesting on that front. And also from a club level down, this structure hasn't really happened before. And so what will the pushback be like? I think there's so many things here that could potentially go wrong. Dan Ashworth as a person and as a job that he's done, incredible. Will it work at maybe the highest high-pressure job in Manchester United, the most high-pressure job as Manchester United are? Well, I mean, look, it's worth trying because really it can't go much worse.
But he'll create an amazing environment.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.